Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth. I'm your host, the Game Master, and in this one, we're talking about the amazing Spider Man. But before we get into that, smash like, make sure you're subscribed, and as always, leave a comment. It helps us out with the algorithm, but also we love to hear from you guys. We have a genuinely awesome community here, and that's thanks to you. So thank you so much for being here. So, having said all that, there's something I wanted to share before we got into the adventure itself. And that is years ago, I was reading this old comic book. And in the back of it, in the letters section, this little kid wrote in to Stan Lee and he asked, who is the most powerful Marvel character? And mind you, this comic book was written in the 1960s. So keep that in mind because I'm sure this is probably going to prompt like an argument or something in the comments section. But so the kid wants to know who's the toughest, right? So Stan Lee answers and he does his Stan Lee thing that I think on some level we all kind of expect in a way, right? And it always kind of put me in mind of like a carnival barker or something where he just takes a moment to like kind of advertise and promote the Marvel universe. So he's sort of like, well, true believer, nobody is as strong as the Incredible Hulk. And who could possibly hope to pierce the armor of the invincible Iron Man? And he kind of goes through everybody, right? And he talks about how smart Reed Richards is and, just whatever. You get the idea. And then he sort of circles around to Ben Grimm. And for a lot of people who didn't start reading Marvel until decades later, and someone asks you who's the most powerful character, first of all, there's obviously, there's people saying Galactus or the Beyonder or whatever. But back in the day, Ben Grimm was kind of the original bad boy of the Marvel Universe, right? He was a brawler. He got it done. And I was very surprised. I personally thought Stan was going to say somebody else, but he chose in this letter to this kid. He said Ben Grimm was the toughest Marvel character. And that kind of blew my mind, right? And unfortunately, I can't tell you what issue this is in or anything like that. For anybody that can find the issue where he says this, by the way, I will award you a no prize. And for the older listeners, they understand what a no prize is. The coveted Marvel no prize. But at any rate, so here's the thing though, because the answer is not over. So having said all that, right, Stan then says, which also blew my mind. He says, now, having said that, Peter Parker is almost as smart as Reed Richards. He's almost as strong as Ben Grimm. He's almost that good, as good at invention as Tony Stark, right? So all these people he's mentioned, actually, he seemed to do this to put Peter Parker into perspective, right? And Stan Lee says, but here's the thing. In each of these categories, Peter might be second place, but Peter's just in high school. And he says, when Peter grows up, when Peter Parker is an adult, he is for sure going to become the ultimate Marvel character. And he's going to be the best at all of these things. And so I'm reading this and I'm like, whoa, that's quite a claim. And it's not like some third rate writer with his opinion or something. This is Stan Lee, right? A lot of people think of it as his universe, you know what I mean? So I'm like, wow, that's really just blew my mind, Stan. So this has been in the back of my head for a while. That's the point. I wanted to set this up, and I feel like without that, I feel like people would have a lot of questions kind of otherwise. But so we introduce this Earth in this adventure. And by the way, I got the idea from this from the old Spider-Man animated series from the 90s that was on Fox Kids, specifically the final episode. But at any rate, so there's this Earth that we introduce for the first time in the prologue of this adventure. And on this particular Earth, there is a Peter Parker. And in the 1960s, he was bitten by a radioactive spider. And he becomes a wrestler to get money, you know what I mean? And the box office of the wrestling place is robbed, and Peter says, "Not my problem," right? We're kind of all familiar with that story, I think. Here's where it diverges, though. Uncle Ben is not around. Uncle Ben doesn't lose his life, and Peter learns nothing. So Peter starts down a bad path on this earth. And all the stuff that Stan Lee said, we decided would be true on this earth. That as Peter got older, he kind of filled out. He got stronger until he was stronger than Ben Grimm, smarter than Reed Richards, on, right? So all of the traits that you would think of Spider-Man as having, they're all just kind of magnified on this specific earth. So he ends up conquering his homeworld. And he's very arrogant. You know, you might even say that's his sort of his defining trait. And one of the reasons he runs the show is he thinks he's smarter than everybody else. Why should I let idiots have a say in anything? It's kind of where he's coming from, right? And so he becomes aware of the multiverse through his various Reed Richards style inventions, you know. So he starts to look for other worlds to conquer. And he notices then Earth K, which is our primary setting of our game, right? When I refer to my game world, what I'm really talking about is the multiverse of continuity where my games take place, right? So we're not talking about just a single planet, it's bigger than that. But that said, there is a single planet we focus on, and that's Earth K. So this evil variant of Spider-Man in his silver chrome armor sees that on Earth K, and by the way, the current year for this adventure is 2011. So he sees that in the year 2011, the world is vulnerable and that the new generation of heroes that has just started are just kids. Because this takes place shortly after Blackest Night, when the Black Lanterns just killed practically everybody, right? So he sees this alternate Earth as super vulnerable and that this is a great time to strike. So he does. And so he attacks. And then that gets the main plot of the actual game started, right? So he fights Peter Parker II. And I've mentioned this on the channel before, but in case anybody new is listening to this, Peter Parker II is the son of Spider-Girl, aka Mayday Parker. She, in turn, is the daughter of the original Peter Parker and Mary Jane, right? So when I say that the villain is attacking this kid, understand this is a variant of the kid's grandpa. And the villain pretty quickly figures out who this kid is, and he's still okay with doing him in. So this says a lot about how incredibly far this variant of Peter has gone in terms of morality, right? So they're fighting. And the way that the evil Spider-Man got here was he has a gadget. I ripped off an old 90s TV show called Sliders, where there was a gadget that could open portals to alternate dimensions. Cool show, by the way. For anyone who's never seen Sliders, go watch Sliders. That's awesome. But at any rate, so they're fighting, and the kid hits the gadget, it goes off, and they tumble through a portal to Earth H. That's where all this has been going, because of course we've been doing Earth H stories here recently. And the Spider-Man of Earth H that these two encounter is Miles Morales. Turns out he works for the Peter Parker of Earth H. And the Peter Parker of Earth H owns a global franchise called Parker Industries. And this Peter Parker, we've talked about this a little bit in recent adventures, encountered something called the Mists of Eternal Youth. And it means he's never going to grow old, right? So he's in his prime. He's been in his prime for like decades now. But he is doing stuff like he's trying to, cure cancer and stuff like that, right? So the Peter Parker of Earth H hires other people to be Spider-Man. So, for instance, the Scorpion, who is normally a Spider-Man villain, on Earth H has reformed, and he's wearing a red and a blue Spider-Man costume, and he's employed to be Spider-Man. Hobie Brown, uh, who is one of multiple guys who's gone by the name Prowler, he is reformed and wearing a Spider-Man costume, and he works for Peter Parker. So one of the multiple Spider-Men in the story is Miles Morales, who we actually haven't really seen on my channel before now. So Miles teams up with Peter Parker II, which is the grandson from Earth K, right? Since these guys are both young, by the way, throughout the course of this adventure, they kind of become best friends. And that this actually sets up communication between Earth H and Earth K, which is kind of where all these Earth H stories have been going. But I'm put a pin in that for now. So the evil Spider-Man is attacking these guys, and he is stronger than any one Spider-Man. But with all of them attacking him, and then Peter Parker has various other gadgets that he deploys. And I'm sorry, that was very specific there, was I? Peter Parker of Earth H, who runs Parker Industries, the heroic older Peter Parker, he is substituting Omni gadgets for various things that helps in the fight too. So with everybody working together, they take down the evil Spider-Man. They take his armor away from him, so on and so forth. You know what I mean? And they take him back to his home world. And there is a conversation in this game about whether or not they should do that, by the way. And basically, the other Spider-Men are worried that if you provoke this world, because just as the heroic Peter Parker of Earth H has all these guys working for him here and stuff like that, right? The villain has a lot of stuff going on his world. You could almost think about it like Darkseid, how he has all those people working for him, It's almost like that, but like spider themed. So they are kind of worried about stirring that hornet's nest, so they just return him to his world. And the nice thing about that then is if I want him to come back as a recurring villain, we can do that later. So now we know there's this evil Spider-Man out there, though. But when they return him, the Miles Morales of Earth H then visits Earth K. And he's noticing how weird things are, right? And then vice versa. Peter Parker II of Earth K is then visiting Earth H. And so one of the things we played out there was he meets his grandfather. Well, I mean, it's his grandfather's counterpart, right? And that's weird for the Peter Parker of Earth H because he doesn't have any grandkids. He has a daughter, but she's never been married. She's never had any kids. So that's weird for him. It's weird for young Peter of Earth K because he doesn't have his grandpa around, right? So that was kind of cool. We played that out. I don't think it translates very well to YouTube, but we played that out. And then the other thing that was kind of cool was having a Peter and a Miles that I personally have not seen, where they're both young, they're both kids hanging out, just being kids, basically. That was kind of nice. I liked that. I was not really into the first Spider-Verse movie because I thought they did Peter dirty. That's kind of the bottom line. So I didn't even watch the second one. But yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else happened in this game session that I should tell you about. I feel like that's pretty much it. But oh, yeah, there is a thing I should say, and that is that it's not limited to just these two characters. It slowly begins to spread where some of the other heroes of Earth K can now visit Earth H, and in a lot of it is so many people died on Earth K because of Blackest Night. It's a lot of kids who can go see like a counterpart to their parent. And they know it's not really their parent, but it's still nice to be around these other people. And I suppose it would be bittersweet, right? Like it's kind of cool and it's kind of sad at the same time, but like for all of us playing, we all got it. We felt like, yeah, I would, like in real life, my mom's not around anymore. If I had a dimensional travel device and I could go spend time with my mom's counterpart for a day, I would for sure want to. I'll put it that way. Um, but yeah, that was how we played this one. So this one was cool because, at least in my opinion, it was cool because we got in some fighting, which is always nice. We introduced some new stuff we hadn't seen before, like the evil Peter Parker. I liked that. And then I really liked the small moments that were the more character-driven things where people were just interacting. And that's one of a million reasons why we need to, on my end, I need to get my act together in terms of like buying some audio equipment and trying to get this going so that we can actually record these game sessions. Because when I'm just telling you, oh yeah, these two guys talked and it was really heartwarming, that means nothing in a recap. But to hear the actual thing itself, it was really good. So that's it. That's it for this one. I hope that you thought it was interesting. If so, as always, smash the like button. Make sure you're subscribed. Leave us a comment. Um, from everybody here at the longest running superhero RPG on Earth, we hope you have a good one, and we'll see you in the next adventure. Bye.